Welcome to the Santam Insure Your Future Money Bootcamp with me, Maya Fisher-French.
And me, Mapalo. To give our listeners a bit of background, we have been working with Santam staff members where we take them through a money bootcamp.
And last year, after seeing the incredible changes that these individuals went through, we realized that there was an opportunity to take this money journey to a broader audience. So thank you very much to Santam for sponsoring this podcast.
Absolutely. By following the 13 episodes over the next 6 months, you as the listener can join by simply following the various steps of the Money Bootcamp. You will have access to the documents and the spreadsheets discussed in this podcast, and you can fill them in as you go along the journey. We also welcome your questions.
So today, Mapalo, we're going to be starting with money and emotions because I think you need to understand how you feel about money before you can embark on this journey. But then for our listeners, in future episodes, we're going to look at how to put together a budget, whether that's your day-to-day budget or even budgeting for a big life event like buying a house or a car.
We'll also be looking at credit, healthy credit, as well as how to get out of unhealthy debt. We will look at the difference between saving and investing and how to start.
And we're also going to be covering those big topics like life insurance. How much do you need? What cover is important at what stage of your life? And we're going to look at medical schemes, medical insurance, and gap cover.
We'll cover retirement, creating a will, and providing for your family. Basically, we'll cover all those aspects that you need to put together to own your financial plan.
And we're going to share the experiences of the people who've gone through this journey. But we're also going to discuss your questions. So please WhatsApp them to us at 062 174 0145.
Now, let's be clear. We are not financial advisors. We are not allowed to give you specific financial advice, but we will be speaking to experts and can give you the theory and enough information for you to be asking the right questions of a qualified financial planner. So let's get on with the show, Maya.
So today we're going to start off with money and emotions. And this is extremely important. I mean, Mapalo, you and I have seen over the many years of working with people how emotion affects or even sabotages money mindset.
No, Maya. Every single time we work together or even just yourself, we always talk about money and emotions first. When people think about personal finance, people think numbers, rands and cents, and yet it all starts with how we perceive money and why do we do the things we do with our money. So I'm very excited for this topic.
Absolutely. And I think you and I often, when we debrief after working with, Mapalo and I actually talk to each other quite often, and we often debrief. And it's always that stuff like, wow, we realize things as well through working with someone like, oh my goodness, that was the money story. That was the money kind of moment for them. It wasn't about money. It was about something in their past. It was about their relationships. It's always not about money. It's always about something else. So one of the tasks which we are going to do and we have set for our mentees is to complete a money mindset questionnaire. And this link is available along with all the resources in this podcast description. And I really want you as the listener to complete this money questionnaire because what comes out of this money questionnaire is very revealing, as mentees discovered.
What was interesting about the questionnaire is that I realized that actually we didn't know a lot about each other's relation to money. Like we did not understand because you see things in your own way and you justify it in your own way without understanding your partner's justifications or reasons for spending. So the money questionnaire actually helped us understand each other's money background and therefore get clarity on each other's money behavior or how we spend money or respond to money. And that actually helped the communication because now I had the background and understanding of how he relates to money. Also, it actually helped with empathy because I got to understand his relation. Therefore, some of the issues were clarified. Then I got to say, you know what? Okay, I see. I kind of understand where this is coming from.
So Mapalo, that was Andiswa, one of my mentees from last year. And in her case, like so many couples, her and her husband were finding it hard to make ends meet after that huge interest rate increase. Didn't that hit so many people?
So many people, Maya.
And and how do you kind of making things balance and you're just making it work and then suddenly, you've bought the house, you've got the kids, and suddenly it just throws you. And they were finding it really hard to talk about their money problems because they had very, very different money personalities. But when her husband did this questionnaire and they started to have a better understanding of their own financial emotions and upbringing, it had such a big impact on their ability to talk to each other when they understood it. And I think for me and these were also reflected to me. She said, Maya, once we've done the questionnaire and we understood how much our upbringings had affected us differently, we realized how important it was in talking to our children now about money and creating a different relationship for our children with money and how influential that has been, will be on their lives, which I thought was also a very interesting insight.
Absolutely, Maya, because, one of the things, and we say this all the time, that our kids learn by observation, right? They don't learn by what we say or, so it starts with us. If we get our money story right, it's easier for our kids to get their money story right. And I love the fact that finally they realize that, they come from two backgrounds. What we often do when it comes to love, we think, oh my goodness, our love will just carry us through, right? And yet once you start living with someone, you realize that, their background is completely different from yours. And how they perceive money is completely different from you. So getting those conversations, hard conversations sometimes, out of the way truly can build a relationship that much further. And also, we talk about generational wealth, but generational wealth also means that we are able to talk about money freely and our kids are in on those conversations and they see us being comfortable around money topics.
I love that. I love what you just said. Generational wealth is also generational financial education.
Yes,
actually, it's an ability to talk about money. And that is probably the biggest thing that I pick up with almost everybody I work with is they always say we couldn't talk about money at home. When I grew up, it was either there's no money or no one talked about money and that they bring up immediately. It is, I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about money. What was your experience growing up in your house environment? Do you think that affected you?
I think so, 100%, Maya, 100%. So both my parents worked in government, really earning not so well. But one thing my mother is and still good at till today, Maya, is that she is such a fantastic budgeter. She loves budgeting. I mean, at my big age with kids and a family of my own. She was telling me the other time that, oh no, I'm getting a lump sum from one of my investments and this is what we're going to do. And she has her list written down already. So she is very good with money. She applies that thing where, it's not about instant gratification. If she wants something, she'll wait years just to get it and buy it cash. My dad, on the other hand, I've realized as I grew older, he's not very good with money.
So how did they have a money conversation? Or did she just do it all? Did she just manage the household finances?
No, she just said, this is what we're going to do. We need to plan. And he was like, okay, I know you always do what's best for the family, so that's how we're going to do it. So they played like a team, right? Where he knew that maybe this is not my strong point, it's my wife's strong point, and he just leaned more towards that. My dad is fantastic in many other things. Budgeting, not one of them.
But I think you often find that in a relationship, there's always one who's really good at the budgeting, or, there often is that, or better with money than the other. But I think the problem comes is that your father was happy to let your mom manage it. But what I have seen in many relationships is where they don't want to talk about it and they just start taking on debt. And they don't want to admit that they're struggling financially. And we see this actually quite often. It goes both ways, but I see it both in both men and females. There's no real, it's a personality thing. But often women will also take on the day-to-day finance of the house. Men, this is the big problem, right? Men often pay the bond and do the investments, and the wife does the day-to-day spending, the groceries and that, which actually goes up faster than inflation,
that is
right?
so expensive.
And they don't want to admit that they're struggling to the partner, so they just start putting it on their credit cards. I think, yes, you can have two different personalities, but until you acknowledge that and understand that you have to have these conversations, you can't just be getting into more and more debt.
Yes.
And so obviously your father didn't do that. He obviously had those discussions with your mom.
No, he did. And my father, I think they're very smart people because they said, you know what, we realized that we're married in community of property because that's all you could ever get married. That's the contract you would get married whenever they got married in the 60s. Maya, he knew that for sure that, my wife is much better at this. She was an accountant also, and he did economics. So he knew that, I know that my household will always have everything, but let's lean into your strengths. And I promise you, my mother showed me her pay slip. I think I was around 9. when I wanted roller skates and stuff. And she said, where's it going to come from? Showed me her payslip. She said, where is it going to come from? You see, why we don't have things instantly is that we have to budget. And I remember by the end of the year, I had saved up a little bit, and they had saved up a little bit for me to get the roller skates. I looked at my money. I said, there's no way I'm going to waste my money on roller skates.
So let's talk a little bit about that with family conversations with kids. I know this. I always say to my friends, when they say their kid wants something, you say to them, well, use your pocket money. And you know what's so funny is that I've got a friend of mine who was telling me her child's got quite a lot of money saved because grannies give them money and put it in their bank account, all that. And the minute she says, well, use those funds, they don't want it anymore.
Oh, no, of course.
Yeah. So test your child's value system very quickly by making them pay for it themselves. I mean, just a good little...
They'll value it way more.
They'll value it, and they'll know what they really want. But when it's your money, they're quite happy to spend it.
Absolutely.
So that's quite a really, really important one. I must just tell you, my background was actually very different because my mom didn't know what was going on in the finances. My father got us into a huge amount of debt. And when he died, I was 16, we lost our home. We lost everything. My mom had to find a job. She had to start working. She had been a stay-at-home mom raising her kids.
Oh, my word.
Our lives when I was 16 changed completely. And so that, you can imagine my money messages and my money emotions. Yes. Fear is really top of... So money fear. Yeah. I have a lot of fear of money, of losing money. But I also, of course, have this very strong feeling of independence around my money. Like I make sure I've got my investments. I make sure that I've got my money put aside.
And you make sure you know what's happening with your finances.
Exactly.
You don't
so I look after all the investments in our household. So we all react differently. But it was interesting you was talking about your mom budgeting and that. So one of my mentees reflected to me in her money story that her mom was always saving. And she used to resent that. She said, but, why are you saving? Why are you making all these sacrifices when you should live for today? So I think sometimes there's also a personality type that comes in. So there's the experience, but you may react differently to the experience.
Do I have an example for you? I mean, similar to us. So there's 4 of us at home, right? And we experienced a financial downturn when my father's business didn't go well and we had to downsize the house. And all of us, I mean, there's 4 of us, each and every single one of us remembers that time completely. I mean, it happened. It happened, but just even when we remember the situation, when we remember that experience, we talk about it completely differently. And in that, I realized that we all made our money vows at some point. So money vows is that something terrible happened or something really stressful happened in our family and we made a vow of some sort. My brother, if you have it, spend it because you just never know the future. Me, you know what? I will never not have a home. So even with my emergency fund, I'm obsessed that I can never not have a roof over my head. My other sister, prudent. She will not spend a cent more if she has told herself that I need to have X amount in my bank account. My older sister, on the other hand, she's like, you know what? It always comes back to me type of thing, Same experience, but completely different vows.
Yeah, we're also 4 siblings and exactly the same thing. I mean, totally and utterly different. My sister and I were once talking about exactly a moment, an experience in our household. And her reaction was I will never say no to my children. Mine was, I'll always protect myself. Oh, wow. Make sure I'm okay. Totally different reactions to exactly the same experience. And again, you do wonder if you were both in the same room at the same time.
Yes. But that is sometimes how you recall the situation. You think into yourselves, where we experiencing the same thing at the same time. But I think that's why, Maya, it's so important to go back to when was that moment for you? Because most of us do have that one moment or a couple of moments growing up, that realization that, you know what, money is very, very important.
And also what I loved about doing this questionnaire is you should do it, if you are in a relationship, do it separately from your partner and then come together and share your reflections. Because again, it is all about how you perceived a moment in time. And it could even be an incident that you shared together, but how did you both perceive it? And I think those moments, I still remember my husband, we were having an argument about credit we were getting our bond and I didn't want to max out my credit facilities.
Yes.
And he was like, yeah, but if we put it makes more sense. And I looked at him and I said, but what if you left me one day? And I was left with this debt. And he looked at me and said, I'm not leaving you. Where
What are you
does this fear
talking
come
about?
from?
Yes.
And but there's my need to protect myself. So, and we had to have that discussion. I said, do you know what, this was my upbringing, this is my experience. I need to know I can always be okay on my own. And if you can share that, it's not about, I don't trust you. It's actually not about, I don't trust you.
That is so powerful.
Exactly. And I think being able to have those conversations is really so important. But I want to also get back a little bit to the psychology of, we all got different personality types, and there's some of these amazing sort of money types. I think there are things like the compulsive spender, the compulsive money maker, the warrior, the gambler. And, you know, you were talking about fear around money, and one of our mentees that I had last year, she was a compulsive saver. She had to have this really big amount of money. So talking about money fears, right, in an account, but she didn't know what it was for. And I'm talking way beyond an emergency fund,
Yes.
right? It was like a lot of money sitting in there, but she was paying for some of her items like prescription glasses on her credit card.
What?
And paying it off over a year.
So you have quite a large chunk, which is over and beyond your emergency fund, but you have fear to touch that money, so you'd rather use a bit of credit.
Exactly. And she said she has friends who feel the same way. So one of the big things that we did is I said, right, earmark those funds, saying this money, and I said, start to become your own bank. Start looking at this as I am my own bank. So I'm not going to borrow from the bank, I'm going to borrow from my bank account.
Yes,
Does that make sense?
yes.
And I also said, look, you know you need those prescription glasses every 2 years. So actually build up a little fund for your prescription glasses.
And clearly she sounds like a very capable person
She's
to
very,
do that.
very, but so she's very capable, very focused on saving, but the fear was making her make bad decisions because she was paying interest when she, or you pay a lot more interest on credit than you're earning in the bank, right?
Yes.
Like hugely different. And your credit card's probably coming in at 20% and you may be lucky to be getting 6-7% on your savings. So it makes no sense. But it was about psychologically giving these little, what I always call them like little buckets of money, and giving the money purpose. And I was touching base with her recently, and she said, it's been working. She bought her prescription glasses from her savings now and not on the card. So sometimes one also has to reflect, saying, what is that fear doing to my money behavior?
Yes. My word, Maya.
Interesting. That's what I love. This is why we love what we do.
Absolutely.
We do. And I think also the personality type that I've come across often, and I have to admit that sometimes I can be a little bit like this, and that's the saver splurger. So, some people feel like they've got the money there. So I had one mentee, right, who was like, I don't ever want to touch it. And the others are like, ooh, there's 20,000 Rand there. Let me use it, right? And I think for someone like that, again, it's about giving them purpose with their money, saying, what is the money for? Because if you know it's for something, then it changes it. And also, of course, always having a fun fund. I make sure I have a fun fund.
Oh my, that is a must. For me, it's sort of a traveling fund because I love traveling, even if it's just a small getaway, like an hour away from home. For me, it's very important. So the different money personalities, and, people always ask, can I just be one or can I be a mixture of one or two? And most of the time, I feel like I'm one or two, but also it depends on where I am in my life stage at that point, where I am with my finances. So, for example, now with kids, and my son is going to be finishing primary in the next 4 years. Already we're thinking, oh goodness, where is he going to go to high school? So meaning less holidays here and there, that sort of thing. So I think definitely you can be a mix of one or two, because sometimes I think people, when they read stuff like this, like, oh my goodness, so it means I'm just a spender. No. Oh, another thing, Maya, that I'm quite the spend on holiday.
You and I share this. That's what I was saying when I was going there with this. You and I share this character trait.
Oh, Maya, I can be good. I will save to the point where let's say we go out for lunch with my sister. And I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, oh, I would like to go for this one. But I'm like, oh, maybe if it's $600, I can go for something for $300. Then immediately what I do, I save the $300. Okay. That's how I operate.
Yo, that is disciplined.
No, I do if I see shoes and I can see ones that look similar and I still like them, and maybe those were $1,000, I'll go for $800 one.
But then you'll put the 200 Rand away
immediately,
because then you are really saving.
Then I'm really saving.
Yeah.
That's a saving, not when there's a sale. That's a different thing altogether. That's me. Let me get on a plane. Be in a different city. I'm a completely different woman. You do not know me, Maya, and I do not know you when I'm on a holiday, okay? To the point where I will say, I will deal with it when I come back. And Offense knows this. My husband, he knows this. He says, you're a completely different beast on a holiday. So
I know the psychology. I am identical. I am the person who comes back a whole lot of rubbish that I wonder why I bought all that stuff. Okay, there is something that happens, and no matter what I budget, it always goes over.
Yeah.
And look, I must tell you, I have the funny to pay for it because I always have my savings. I don't leave it on a credit card because that's the fear. But there is something that switches off in my brain that when I go on holiday. And I had a discussion about this with a behavioral finance expert. And he said to me, you love experience. Experience is one of your big money or your big psychological things. It's called openness, when you're open to experiences. And you want to bring back some of that experience. That's what it's about. And it was like an aha moment for me, completely aha moment. I mean, I will go to we were in Delhi, I remember, and we went to have, and alcohol is incredibly expensive in India. And we didn't drink a lot, but we went to this place and it was beautiful and all this. I mean, I had a cocktail for 300 Rand, not in a million years. But I would really have thought about that many times if I was here.
Maya?
There I was like, well, I'm here, right?
Maya?
So I'm gonna do you know how I solved the problem?
I like how you solved the problem.
I solved the problem. I think you may know my story of Japan. You've lived through my Japan experience. I was supposed to go in 2020. It was my 25th wedding anniversary, and then COVID. So I had another 4 years to save for it.
Yeah.
I went with double the budget. I doubled my spending budget, and this time I stayed in budget.
You stayed in budget because it was doubled.
It. I was underestimating my spend. So you see, you do have to, as long as the money's there.
Now I know. Now I know.
Now the
solution
secret is just be honest.
Yeah.
Don't think this is a budget holiday because you just are incapable of it.
I'm incapable of it, Maya.
So I'm not sure if this is good advice that we're giving people listening. They always say, but
Maya,
Mapalo telling us to spend more.
What I do love, though, Maya, is that we're not spending on credit, right?
Absolutely.
I think that should be the message here, that whatever your personality, if you're a bit of a spender like us on holiday, do not let it be on credit. And I don't have a credit card because I don't trust myself, as I always say. It's all on savings. If I've depleted my savings, it sucks, but I'm not starting on minus.
Yeah. And you'll come back and be so scared when you see you have no savings. You'll
work
You'll
harder.
cut back all the things that and put it back in again.
There we go.
But also that is our personality type, and we've got some safety in our personality type. But
Yes.
not everyone's like that. Some people can live in credit and not worry about it much. So that is,
Yeah, but also that's not what you want for yourself. That's not what you want.
So
for
any
yourself.
final tips for listeners on money and emotions?
Money and emotions, I would definitely say, you know what, do take some time out and reflect. Reflect on what have you been spending your money on. You know, the question that I normally ask also, Maya, is look back at your life. Look at all the years of hard work that you've put in. So let's say it's 5, 10, 15 years, whatever that looks like for you. And really take a look and say, how much of that income that I've earned is in my pocket right now? And say, why is it not the way I want it to be? Then start from there.
Oh, very powerful, very scary one to do, especially when you've reached like 40 or 50 and you've had a lot of paychecks. It's like, where is the money? But on that note, I want to do a call to action to our listeners, because this is about our listeners. This is for our listeners. So please complete the money questionnaire, which you will find in the link in the description of this podcast. If you, as I said, if you're in a relationship, I recommend you do it separately from your partner, then get together, and then please share the insights with us. You can drop us a voice note on WhatsApp at 062 174 0145. And please join us for our next episode, where we're going to actually start the practical steps of how to put together that budget.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be exciting, Maya.
Oh, we're going to make budgeting exciting, Mapalo.